we've talked about this before, but if we could redo our wedding in a sense, what are some things we would have changed? I don't think we sat together at the rehearsal dinner because I was mad. I was mad at you.
Oh, wow.
I had
and
that.
I was probably oblivious.
Oh, no, we talked about it.
Still, I may have been oblivious.
I talked to you.
You talked to me and I wasn't listening. Here we are again.
Yep.
I am, and this might be kind of a hot take, but I'm ready to be done with this quarantine thing.
Yeah, I am too.
I'm ready to go back to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're pretty over it. This is, jokes aside, like obviously this has been pretty rough for a lot of people, and we've definitely felt, from a business standpoint, the difficulty of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, though, taking into account there's a lot of people who are
right.
Saving lives and
yeah,
right. You have to
preface.
there's a bunch of angles to this. Our little angle is this is really hurting.
Is that we're ready to be done? That's our
business.
angle.
Yeah, we're ready to be done with it. But
yeah. You posted this on your story the other day, but I found messages on Facebook from actually it was like 2 years before we started dating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just had our 12th anniversary of us officially dating.
Which celebrate is probably too strong of a word. We definitely didn't celebrate necessarily, but we remembered.
Yes, we reminisced.
Do people do that? Do you think people do that?
Well, yeah, because after I posted it, a bunch of people were like, yeah, we celebrate ours too. And I was like, oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
I mean, I don't want to downplay our wedding anniversary.
Sure.
But I think this anniversary might possibly be more fun to reminisce, just because it was just when we were starting.
That's the thing, is that it's like you get married, but like for us, we had been together for a little over a year. Mm-hmm. Most people, it's around that time, right?
Or longer.
Or longer. And so obviously the wedding is an incredible thing and an amazing event and something that you want to remember, and definitely you want to get photos and videos taken of it.
I mean, yeah,
obviously. But it is like, it's the start of the next chapter, but it's not like the start of the book, to use to take that analogy one step further. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like the first chapter can be, at least it was for us, super exciting and fun. Yeah. And then the next chapter was amazing and marriage was awesome, or our wedding was awesome. But something about that first chapter that's fun to remember.
One thing I remember being so surprised by, well, I shouldn't say surprised by. We talked all the time, and I am kind of an introvert. You're very much an extrovert. But I really enjoyed talking to you, and you were so just witty and funny. And it was one of those things where it was like, before we started dating, I always wondered, how do people stay like engaged in their relationship long term? Don't they get bored of each other?
Right.
That was a genuine fear that I had. And then even just in those first few weeks of us talking all the time and going on dates and getting to know each other, like, I was like, oh, I get it.
Right.
Even though it was just the start of our relationship.
I would like to say that I had that much forethought, like, oh man, how do people, but I was just still am fairly simple-minded. So I was just like, well, I really like her. So, but I don't think I ever actually gave thought, but I definitely see that, how you can think like, man, what are you going to talk about for 12 years, 15, 20, 30 years?
Well, and that tells you my past dating relationships. I just felt I would feel bored, or I would just feel like, that's what made you so
And here we are.
Clear.
And here we are. We have a podcast because we just can't talk enough. That we thought.
We actually carved time out of our day.
We talk so much that other people surely want to hear what we have to say.
We do. In 10 years, we'll want to watch these.
It was funny. I don't remember why I was browsing Facebook. Oh, I know. Okay, so I was looking for some reason, I just wanted to find all of these old pictures. I love in the iPhone, in the new Photos app, how you can just quickly go to whatever year, month, day, and see exactly what was happening at that time. And that's fun. That's fun for me to go back and look at. And so there was gaps in my photos, obviously, because before you had an iPhone, you'd take pictures on, a terrible phone and they just disappeared or whatever. So I've just been looking for old things. So I was scanning Facebook to see what was there way back in the day. And I was on an old Dropbox account and I found all of our wedding photos. And so it was kind of fun to look through those.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this ourselves a lot. Obviously, being in the wedding industry, we see so many different things, but it's fun to kind of talk about what we did and what we would do if we were getting married now in 2020, knowing what we know.
Sure.
Knowing what we know.
Yeah. Do you have regrets? I have regrets.
Yeah.
As far as not you.
Oh, wow.
Not marrying you. That wasn't a regret.
That wasn't a regret.
Just things surrounding our wedding. I have lots of regrets. Small.
Yeah.
I mean, I think obviously for us, the marriage was most important. So, it's just one day, but I do have regrets. Do you?
Yes. I don't know. I mean, a regret to me sounds too heavy.
Okay.
It's not that I necessarily, oh man, I really regret doing that. It's more like, oh man, I would do that so much different now.
Sure. Okay.
And maybe I'm just maybe this is semantics. I'm just saying the same thing differently, but that's sort of, yes, there are definitely things that I look back on now and be like, oh wow, I would do that differently.
Yeah. I guess the biggest one for me that definitely is a regret, and not necessarily something I could have changed, as the person that I was. Sure. But I just was so inconsiderate.
Yes, that is okay. Yeah, that's
across the board. I just was not.
What do you mean when you say that? Like specifically?
I didn't even finish writing thank you notes to people.
Right.
Which is awful. I wasn't just considerate of people's time and the effort that went into our wedding. It was just like I was oblivious to all the kind things that people were doing for us. And I just was kind of like,
sure.
going through the whole
definitely.
thing.
I can relate to that.
Very inconsiderate. So I really regret that.
Yeah. I think that I'm sure there are some, well, we were 20, I was 24.
I had just turned 22.
Yeah. So I think I had just turned 24 or was 24 or turning.
No, you were 23. I was 22.
Right.
You were
and I was
23.
just going to turn, it doesn't matter. I don't even know how old I am.
We
now.
were young.
That was my point, is we were young. And I'm sure there are a lot of 22 and 3 and 4 year olds who are considerate people.
Yeah.
So I'm not using that as an excuse.
We've seen them. We've had clients who are much more.
That's true.
Empathetic and
thoughtful,
considerate than us.
But yeah, we definitely lacked a lot of perspective.
Yeah.
I can definitely relate to that.
If you're still waiting for a thank you note from me, I'm really sorry.
Know that we're thankful for all the things that you did for us, all of you out there. So that's a huge one, I think, for sure. What about like just some of the more logistical or practical things that you would do differently now?
We didn't trust our vendors.
We had amazing vendors.
We did.
And without doing...
That was a funny way to say that.
Yeah. Without doing any research, like we just had these vendors. We picked these vendors, and I feel like we lucked out because we didn't give the forethought, even I would hope the clients that hire us give.
Right.
To really do your research and know who you're hiring.
Right.
We didn't have that, and yet we ended up with incredible...
We had incredible vendors, and we did not utilize them. As in, we weren't listening to their thoughts and advice.
Right.
And I do regret that because there were things about the day that it's in hindsight, it's like, oh, we didn't even think about that. I got ready at my sister's apartment, but none of that's documented because it was so far from our venue.
Right.
There were elements where we could have had some of our photos taken downtown.
Yeah.
And we were like, no, let's not do that.
Right.
And I regret that because that would have been
because
really
our
fun.
photographer wanted to do that.
Yep.
And because
we didn't listen.
No, we just didn't. It was like, this seems like something else to do. And she did an amazing job and gave us incredible photos being at the venue. Mm-hmm. But you just see that now looking back, it's like, oh man, we could have gotten. And honestly,
it's a variety thing.
Yeah, it's a variety thing. It's also knowing like when you sort of trust your vendors in that way, or you encourage their creativity.
Yeah.
So not that she couldn't be creative where she was, because she was, and she was incredible. But when they're like, hey, let's do this, it's almost like I want, do that. And
right.
Speaking on the other side of things as a vendor, it's like when your couple's like, when you have an idea of like, oh, what if we went here? And they're like, let's do it. It just sparks something in you that's like pushing that creative, line a little bit. That is always when you get the best stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. Which you've said this, but she did an incredible job. Like I'm realizing now we were probably difficult clients to work with because we just were so like, we just went through the whole thing, not even, I don't know. We just didn't pay much attention to the advice we were given.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So I wish we would have done a better job.
So Yifong, we're sorry that we didn't.
We're sorry.
We're sorry. We
would have loved to go downtown.
The venue was really pretty.
The venue was beautiful.
It's not a venue anymore.
I know.
They
which is kind of
it up.
sad. But everything was at the venue, which was really cool. The flow of everything was really nice. I mean, like, honestly, we were undeserving of the wedding that we had.
Yeah.
That's how I feel, because it was beautiful. Everything was amazing. I did not appreciate it for what it was. But there were things that I wish we would have had more intention with the actual like ceremony part, or the even giving each other a note or something.
Right.
I think we sort of just let the day be carried away from us, to so much so that it was like I felt like we were just going through the motions and there wasn't really. But at the same time,
I mean, going through the motions, we never done it, but it was just like we just kind of, honestly, I just the whole time was thinking about the honeymoon. Like, I just can't wait to get out of here.
Which I think
is fine.
can be valid. Like, obviously weddings do and can bring out, family stuff or just tension, or whether everyone's just excited or anxious or whatever. It just amplifies a lot of those feelings. And so by the end of it, you are exhausted.
I'm thankful that we don't look back and think that our wedding day was the best day ever.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds strange, but I'm just glad that like it feels like every year we've grown closer and our relationship has gotten, deeper and so that we don't look back and be like, oh, that was the best. You know what I mean? I don't know if anybody does that, but
where it's like, oh, that really was the best day of our lives. And now
it's only gotten
over.
harder. But I'm with you. I wish like there was just very little sentiment.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
On our part,
like we didn't write our own
totally
vows.
Our fault.
We weren't. Our officiant was amazing and did everything, but everything he was like, "Do you want to do this?" Oh, sure, I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah,
and
we just didn't have much intention.
I think intention's a good word for it. I think I wish we would have had a little bit more of that. Obviously, stylistically, it's funny to think about the things that we chose and did, and some of it was just that's what you did at the time, but a lot of it is like, oh man, like I would 100% never rent tuxedos again because everybody in our wedding party looked like they were wearing their dad's tuxedo. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and that was 11 years ago. And so it was like
they were big to begin with.
Baggy tuxes were sort of the thing, which is really funny.
Yeah, it's funny. But I just also, even just from a logistical standpoint, and I've been in a few weddings where you rent a tuxedo and you spend a bunch of money and you get this tuxedo that doesn't
thing.
look great.
Right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And then you give it back. And so I love when we see where they either say, hey, go buy a suit or wear a suit that you have, or we're going to wear this outfit, but we're just going to all buy it. And maybe we spend a little bit more money, but then we get...
You get to have it.
We get to have a suit that we get to wear all the time in quarantine.
I think... For what? For what? Walking down the street. I think that's I love that Bridesmaids have done that too, where they've like
just kind of
go buy your own dress, like go pick out whatever, whether there's like a color palette, pick something within this color palette, because guys don't have this problem as much, but for the ladies, like our body types are all different, and so one dress doesn't flatter every single body type, and so to be able to feel comfortable in whatever dress that you can pick for yourself, I really wish I would have done that.
Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
And I think it's a lie. I mean, I think at this point maybe everyone knows this, but it is the most hilarious thing to say, oh, well, you can wear it again.
Oh, right.
But it very clearly looks like a bridesmaid's dress, at least the ones I picked out.
Most of them,
yeah. But yeah, I think that's a trend I wish we would have.
The other thing I remember that I wish we definitely wouldn't have done is family photos after the ceremony.
Yeah. Well, that one was kind of tricky because we ran out of time.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we were supposed to do them before.
We just have too big of families, I guess.
Yeah. And that was another thing. I think like your family and my family were adamant about having big photos of everyone, which now I do treasure because we've lost people in our families. Yeah. And so I do treasure those photos.
No, it's not even that they're not. It's just if you can schedule it so that after you go through the ceremony, you can just relax. Because we never got to walk around to tables. We didn't get to say hi to people because we were just taking so many photos, which was fine. But that's... if there's a way to organize it before, which we've obviously shot plenty of weddings that's possible. Yeah. And every wedding is going to be different. Every family is going to be different. But
and we didn't know that would have been important to us until it happened.
Right. And then you don't. Yeah. And then again, something probably our vendors could have helped us if we would have listened. If we would have listened and been intentional and heard.
But that. I do take some responsibility for that as a photographer, to be able to present options to my clients.
Absolutely.
To run through scenarios with them even before they book me. I'm usually asking them, what's important to you on your wedding day? What kinds of things do you see, like when you picture it and you picture the flow of the day and what's most important? And always questions come up or things come up where they're like, oh, I hadn't even thought of that. Right. And they get to work through some of those scenarios before they've even planned, had a timeline and stuff like that. I think that's important.
I think that is the experience part that people want or care about is not as much like, well, I know how to take pictures in this scenario or video or whatever, because that's important too. But it's having been through so many weddings to see this is going to work well. This might be a tricky spot, and be able to kind of coach through that.
Yeah, totally. And again, going back to what is most important to you.
Exactly.
If it's most important to you to enjoy the reception, as in you're there as much as possible, mingling with your guests, doing all those things, then it's like, okay, well then probably it makes the most sense to get all of your other, quote unquote formal photos done before the ceremony so that you don't feel like that time's taken away. Or maybe it's the most important thing to me is I want to see my bride coming down the aisle for the first time during the ceremony.
Sure.
If that's the case, then we can totally work around that. You just have to know the pros and cons.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You almost... Well, I'm not going to say you almost didn't marry me, but you were pretty nervous after the rehearsal.
Do you remember why?
Yeah, I do.
You really want to bring that up?
Why not?
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, we went to the rehearsal and you were... I've never seen you so fidgety and unattentive, and we're going through the ceremony, and you and I are supposed to be holding hands and whatever, and you didn't look at me one time, and you just kept looking at your friends and laughing with your friends. And I got this, like, after the rehearsal was done, we kind of went our separate ways to meet up at the dinner. And I panicked. I just got this, like, well, he's terrified. He doesn't want to marry me. Like, what is happening?
Do you remember how I told you
I definitely had a meltdown.
Do you remember how I told you I was just a very simple brain? It's a very simple man. I honestly don't remember. I mean, I remember talking about it afterwards. I don't remember. I mean, I'm sure I was just nervous and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's just strange that is how it manifested itself.
Oh, honestly, because I just was like, just hello? Look at me just one time. So and funny. You just it was like your neck was strained looking at your friends. And I just felt like he doesn't want to do this. What's happening? Even though I knew that wasn't true, but
right.
Yeah,
it's really funny. I don't know. I don't know what happened.
It was probably good to have that. I mean, maybe that's why you have rehearsals, so you can work out all the nervous energy before. Yeah,
exactly. Because I think I remember looking at you on the actual wedding day, right?
Yes,
that
you
was
did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to throw up right before.
During our ceremony?
I don't understand why I would be so nervous. I'm not generally nervous to be in front of people, especially when I don't have to do anything. But right before we were getting ready to walk down the aisle, the pastor and I were standing there, and I was like, I am so nervous, and I feel like I'm going to puke. I don't know what the deal was. And somebody made a joke about it, and then the officiant was like, don't joke about it. I'm going to puke too. And I was like, what the? And so I was so nervous. And so anyways, then we walked down the aisle and got up there, and then nobody was looking at me anymore because you started walking down, which was a good thing. But it's just so funny. I always ask grooms, I'm like, how are you feeling? Like before the ceremony. And the majority of them are like, I'm pretty nervous.
Yeah.
It's just a funny thing I don't know why. It's just such a different.
Well, think about it. Like, when else do you do something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, true. Even in like public speaking moments, you have something prepared, or it's like you get to go up and talk to people, or maybe you've experienced that before, so you can kind of get into that comfortable mode. But this is like all eyes on you, and you're dressed up, and everyone. I mean, it's kind of a nerve-wracking thing.
Yeah, it's a nerve-wracking thing. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
I remember my cheeks getting red. I don't know if it was, I just started blushing and I couldn't stop, and I just felt like, oh, I wish my cheeks weren't so red.
Oh, funny.
I don't know if it was during the ceremony, and I don't think they stayed that way, but anyway. It's
quite amazing how little I do remember. There are like little things you're like, oh, I remember that, and I remember that. But man, the majority of it, I feel like I'm remembering through the photos and the videos.
Well, let's talk about our video.
Let's talk about it. What do you want to talk about?
Listen, people, it's important to hire someone who knows what they're doing if you want to watch it and relive it. Ryan asked some friends to film.
In their defense, they did a fine job shooting it.
Sure. And it also was 11 years ago. That still wasn't really a thing. It was on mini
DV tape, you know? Like, how do you even... This is the whole thing. I know, and I don't know what happened. They recorded the whole ceremony, I'm pretty sure, speeches.
Yeah, we don't
and
have
at one point, I had the footage, and I edited like a little highlight when we were getting started.
Yep.
I remember showing it at the bridal fair, and it was like a highlight of our wedding, and a client was like looking, because we were trying to sell Ferguson Films.
Right.
They were like, is that you? And I was like, oh, yeah. And they're like, well, why are you showing this? Like, you didn't shoot it. And I was like, oh, I edited it. They're like, I don't think it's a miracle we got any work.
I remember you added like a bunch of soft, what's that like?
Well, so this is getting here. Let me take a little technical tangent here for the people that are really interested. when I went to school, I went to the Art Institute of Seattle, and the thing that we thought, my roommate and I, that we thought was so cool was depth of field. Okay, that's where something is in focus and then the background is really blurry, right? And that's the mark of the difference between if I take a photo with my iPhone, if it's not on portrait mode, and a photo with a DSLR, that's where you're really going to see. There's other things, but that's a great indication.
That's what portrait mode tries to do.
That's what it tries to do, is give you that depth. Well, so the wedding was shot on Canon XH-A1. I still remember it was the first camcorder. It was a professional, like, prosumer camcorder. And so it had a nice big lens on it, but there was no depth of field. And that had to do with just a tiny sensor. And so I tried to emulate in different shots. I would try to, like, I remember a shot where you were feeding me the cake, or we were doing the cake cutting or something, and it was static, so I was able to kind of blur. It looked really like a cruddy tilt shift feature. Like, you remember when Instagram first started and you could, like, add tilt shift? It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. But that's what you had to do, because we didn't have these fancy DSLRs and stuff like that at the time.
I mean, it's very impressive.
Oh, thank you.
For what it was.
Yeah, you can find that. It's on I think it's in my demo reel still.
Is it really?
No.
Oh, funny. If we could, we've talked about this before, but if we could redo our wedding in a sense, what are some things we would have changed?
I don't think I would have had a bridal party in the traditional sense.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have.
Maybe like my brother and my cousin up there, just because they were the closest. But, like, honestly, I feel like it's sort of a burden for them. They're happy to do it.
Right.
I'm happy. Loved being in weddings, but you're asking them to spend money and do all this thing. Like, and the best part of it was getting ready with them. Like, we're all together getting ready.
Which you can do.
And they don't necessarily. I'm not somebody that cared very much for the photos of them, but we could have taken those photos. They could have worn whatever they wanted. So I think I would just redefine what the bridal party would look like.
Yeah.
Maybe they would sit together. Maybe them and their spouses or whatever would sit with us at the reception. But I don't know. The formality of a bridal party, to me, I think I would do away with that.
Yeah, I agree. Because of that reason.
It just kind of adds a layer of complexity that I don't really understand. Or doesn't necessarily need to be.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're asking someone to do this, but you're like, they have an obligation, kind of, which feels wrong.
Have you ever heard about somebody being like, no, thanks?
No, everyone is like, okay, but that's just us, obviously.
Us. And other people probably feel very differently, and they love, like, it's important to have their closest people standing up there.
It would be offensive if someone didn't ask.
For sure.
Or something.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe all my friends would have hated me if they would have been like, dude, I mean, your bridal party? I'm like, I'm not having one.
Right. But I like that you said redefine it.
Yes.
Make them involved in everything that you want.
Yeah.
But not necessarily have to buy or
in the
rent a
traditional
tux
sense,
or rent a suit and a
take
dress
photos
and whatever.
How about you? What would you do differently? That's just one. I could think of a number of others, but I want to hear.
I mentioned the sentimental part. Just I think I would have liked to maybe write our own vows, or at least have a portion of it that was more personal.
Yeah.
Even like write notes to each other. Definitely. Or just something that was gifts. Right. Make it more personal. I talked about being a lot more considerate, but as far as like the wedding style I would do would be drastically different.
100%.
But it's hard because it's like,
because
that was 11 years ago.
Right.
And, I could see downtown on a rooftop or something like that, much smaller, a much smaller wedding.
I love the idea, and it'd be hard because we both have big families, but I've loved the weddings that it becomes like a 3-day event. Not in the sense of like really formal, but it's like we all get together and we have this, and then it's a little smaller, it's a little bit more intimate, and people just spend the whole weekend together.
Yeah,
celebrating.
I love that.
And I think that would be really awesome. And obviously, if it was something you could afford, where it's like we're all going to go on a destination and bring everybody there, that's probably not realistic it wouldn't have been for us.
Yeah.
But I love that idea of just spending the whole weekend to kind of celebrate it.
Yeah.
You know what
Especially when people are coming from out of town.
Yes.
You know, you want to just maximize your time with each other. So yeah, I love the idea of that. Smaller, more intimate, and then other events. So
a lot of formalities we probably would honestly do away with.
Cake cutting.
Don't need to do the cake cutting, the bouquet garter toss.
Yeah. We did a money dance, which I feel like we're stepping on toes now. We probably shouldn't
if you do
that.
a money dance, that's great for you.
I think there were a lot of things like cake cutting that it was sort of like, this is what you do. And so we just did it. Right. Instead of like, well, do we actually want to do that?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
I don't really even like cake.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I agree.
We probably wouldn't have, we wouldn't do that. There's all sorts of stuff. But I think obviously our faith is really important to us. And so that being a key element still, obviously family's still there. I mean, you know,
a lot of that would have stayed the same.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been so fidgety and I would have looked at you. You know, that would have been, I would have acted like I wanted to be there is what I'm trying to say.
You got it out of your system at the rehearsal.
Thankfully,
that was good.
Thankfully.
Yeah. I don't think we sat together at the rehearsal dinner because I was mad. I was mad at you.
Oh, wow.
I had
and
that.
I was probably oblivious.
Well, no, we talked about it.
Still, I may have been oblivious.
I talked to you.
You talked to me and I wasn't listening.
No, But again, like, it's just such a funny thing to think about and talk about because our infatuation with each other was just, you know, nothing compared to how deeply we love each other now. So, you know. Yeah.
And that to bring it back full circle. And that's why I think our first date, thinking back to that and like the newness of the relationship is like, I'd rather celebrate that and then wherever we're at as opposed to, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Well, we don't have to celebrate one or the other. We can celebrate both.
No. You're not allowed to celebrate. Too many celebrations.
Some people get married on their dating anniversary, cool. Which is fun.
Yeah. Well, that was our wedding. Is there any other details we missed that you think people would be interested?
My one thing I wasn't expecting was my dad just letting loose and dancing like crazy. Incredible. That was a moment in history that felt like we've never seen anything like this and we're never going to see it again.
Yeah, that was incredible. That was pretty wild.
We did do a video of ourselves.
Yeah. I think we've posted that
funny.
Before.
Yeah.
I think it's on my Instagram somewhere. But yeah, it was like a slideshow on steroids.
We interviewed ourselves and told our story, sort of.
That was a big hit.
Put together pictures and stuff. So that was pretty funny. That was a part of our reception.
Yeah. I just remember I had it was my camera that all those guys shot on, or those two guys that shot it.
Yeah.
That's what they shot with. And I remember spending a good bulk because they left and they took the camera, but I thought they were going to leave it. So for the last 30 minutes, I was running around frantic that I couldn't find my camera. And I don't even remember dancing and having fun at the end. I just remember being so nervous, and then I was calling. I finally got a hold of him. He's like, "Oh, I have it." I was like, "Oh, okay." And then went back and was like, "Oh, it's time to go." And do I have all my stuff? I just remember being anxious and just kind of ruined the end of it there.
Yeah, the end of the night was really funny. We were lucky we got to have sparklers. Yeah. Where that's not really an option for people anymore. But I don't think we don't have any pictures from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that was another thing, we just had a shorter wedding package.
We opted for a shorter package. Yeah. Which is something I think we would definitely do different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was our wedding. We've gotten to relive it. And now you got to relive it with us. And hopefully you learned some things so that you'll hire the right vendors and listen to them. Yeah. Is that the moral of our story here?
I mean, I guess I do. people do ask, you know, like what are the pros and cons of doing certain things? And I am grateful that we have the ability to go, this is what we did, and I personally didn't like it because of these reasons.
Yeah.
So we do have some good experience.
You think that's valuable
to offer.
Yeah. All right. Well, that seems like a good enough time as any to wrap up.
You're wearing a hat.
I am. And that is because I have what I'm calling quarantine hair.
Yeah. Well, so do I. I get one hair color and cut a year, which probably is not good. I should be getting my hair cut more often, but I had it scheduled for April.
Yeah.
And so,
I could
Heather,
probably do
I'm
it.
really disappointed I don't get to see you for a while.
Do you think I could do it?
No. I once again, I won't do that to.
I don't know.
I wouldn't do that to Heather. I wouldn't want her to have to correct your terrible cut job.
Wow. Well, all right.
I should cut your hair though. I cut Maddox's hair. I feel like your hair won't be that different. Yeah. Just a bigger head.
I can just wear hats though. It's fine because it's not that big.
Because we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I'll just
so
wear
it doesn't
hats.
matter.
So we don't need to worry about it. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Yes.